Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of the Love Aspect podcast. I'm Hannah Dunley with my partner and co-host,
Joshua Saunders, back for another episode with his beautiful Hannah Dunley.
Oh, thank you so much. We're delighted to have you with us today for this episode. So in this episode, what we're going to do is discuss a bit more about boundaries and about, bedroom activity. But in a sensitive way. I think it's important as a couple that, we are open to having these kinds of discussions, and I think more couples should be open to that as well. So there are questions that I'm going to ask. I will answer them first, and then Josh will give what his answer is. And then, we can see and kind of grow from there. So question number 1 is, what boundaries do you have that you're not compromising on? And what I mean by this is, what is something important to you that you're not changing your views on? I think, to be honest, we've been watching Married at First Sight UK. And I've noticed on that show that a lot of people will say, you've crossed my boundaries, but they're never actually telling the person what the boundaries are. Or we don't see them say that, which is also a problem. Because even if they are saying it, we're not seeing it, and that becomes an issue. So for me, I suppose a boundary that I have that I wouldn't be changing my view on is discussing new things before we try them. Because sometimes something might be new to Josh and it might not be new to me, or vice versa. And sometimes, I like to have a discussion about things before I do them. Because some things are considered very out there for some people. They might not be out there at all for me. Or, they might be very out there. So definitely for me, I'm not, gonna change my view on discussing new things before we do them. And also, if we did discuss something new that I was interested in doing, and Josh wasn't interested in doing, I don't believe in forcing him to do it simply because I'm interested. And, vice versa. For me, that's not good enough. It's okay that I'm interested. Now, I think as well, and again, this is a personal view, it does depend on what it is that we're discussing. But if we were discussing doing something new that maybe I was interested in and Josh was not, I might consider, can I go off and experience this myself? And not involve him. Does he need to be part of this? And if the answer to that is no, that's also okay. So I am very into compromising on what I do and don't do. But I guess what I'm saying is what I won't compromise on is having the discussion before things are done. I hate change of any kind, and I hate not knowing that something might be brought up. For example, if Josh says to me, we might do something, I'll at least have some kind of knowledge in my brain, okay, this might come up at some point. It doesn't always, but it might. And I at least have the time to mentally prepare. So that's what I would say. So I guess, Josh, if I was asking you the question, what is something important to you that you're not changing your views on or compromising on?
Is this purely in the bedroom, or?
Yeah, so at the moment, yes, it's in the bedroom.
Okay. Let's see. So, I suppose there's just some things I'm not going to want to do. I'm not even going to want to experiment with. I suppose it's more dirty things. Things that are kind of... I suppose you can imagine what kind of dirty things I'm talking about. And I don't mean dirty in the kind of sexually dirty way. I mean dirty in the filthy way. Yeah, you can probably imagine what I'm trying to say. And, I think... I just know I'm not going to be into that, I'm going to want that. So that's just, for me, that's going to be a boundary I don't want to cross. And I don't think it's a boundary that Hannah would want to cross either, so I think I'm quite good in that respect. So yeah, I think me and Hannah are we're on the same page with a lot of stuff. So I don't feel like I really ask Hannah to do anything she doesn't want to do. She doesn't really ask me anything I don't want to do. If there was something I wanted to do, or if there was something that Hannah wanted to do, that either of us weren't maybe sure of, if I wasn't sure of it, but not against it, if it wasn't an instant no, I would maybe kind of, sit and think about it for a bit or for a few days and then maybe give it a go depending. And if, I might enjoy it or I might try and be like, okay, I've tried it and it wasn't for me. So I think now that's a boundary I'm not going to want to cross again. I think that's just a no for me from now on. Is there any kind of, like kind of we're saying, compromise we can come to?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not that, but it's kind of maybe like that, or it's something along the similar lines, but maybe not exactly what it was. So I suppose overall the boundaries for me are, there's some things that I know I'm not going to want to do, and there are some things that I will try if it's not an instant no, and I might try it if I'm comfortable. Depending from there, it might be I enjoyed it, and if she enjoyed it, let's do it more. Or if she enjoyed it, I didn't. Maybe there's some kind of compromise again we could make.
Yeah, your answer ties very much into question 2, which is, what are boundaries in the bedroom to you and what do they mean for you? So boundaries in the bedroom for me involve having a very serious discussion on what you will and will not try, what you are and are not willing to do. And a little bit like Josh, if I'm not all that sure of something, like I will give an example. I dated someone one time that had a foot fetish, and I knew nothing about those. I didn't know anything about them. And I just thought, yeah, okay, well, whatever he's into. But it never entered my head to actually stop and think, he might be into that, but am I into that? And if I'm not into that, why am I not saying? And I think personally, I can get quite confused from time to time, because sometimes I don't understand enough about something to actually know whether I would or wouldn't like it. Now, as for the whole foot fetish thing, to be quite fair, I just think it's a little bit silly. But that's because, in my opinion, like, people's, feet are kind of a bit gross to me, if they have gross feet. It's not always the case, mind you. So boundaries for me are kind of like having a discussion with somebody on what you are and are not willing to do. And sometimes there are things that I don't know I wouldn't be willing to do until I try them. So sometimes boundaries can come with a bit of experimentation as well, and finding out, is something for you. And sometimes, even after you try something, you're not always going to be sure that something is for you, and that's okay. Maybe sometimes you have to try something a couple of times before you realize that. And like years ago, when I went to therapy, I was given a lovely list of kind of allowances for myself, and it was called like my personal Bill of Rights. And I came up with a Bill of Rights purely to do with, being sexual. And so it says, I am allowed to say no without judgment. I am allowed to change my mind in the middle of an act of intimacy. I am allowed to say that certain things are not for me without judgment. I am allowed to guide my partner in their actions so as to obtain the most pleasure I desire. Now for that one, that requires being with somebody who's mature, emphasis on the word mature, and not somebody that's overly sensitive that would find it insulting. A lot of the time, men and women alike need guidance as to how to properly pleasure their partner, and it's not an insult. You're not saying there's anything wrong with them. Sometimes they just need some guidance, and with the guidance, it could be perfect, because after all, at the end of the day, guys, don't we want to make our partner feel as satisfied as we can? And if they need to give us a little guidance to get to the promised land, then who are we to say no or to complain? And I suppose the last one then I have there is, I am allowed to discuss any act of intimacy and give constructive feedback after it has taken place. These are very important for me, and these are very important in general for people to understand and to take in and to know that it's okay. And anybody who doesn't agree with any of those things might not be the person for you. Because you have to, like for example, Josh and I sometimes would have a conversation. And it's just a case of, how was that for you? Is there anything I can improve on? Is there anything you can improve on? one time, like, Josh did something and it wasn't something he was into. He tried it out, realized it wasn't for him, and then told me, actually, that's not for me. Now, as a consequence, I was relieved by that because actually it wasn't for me either. But I had thought I should let him do it because I thought he liked it. Turns out he didn't, and that was very easy for us to discuss. And I know I could tell Josh anything and he wouldn't take offense to it or think that I was saying he was less of a man because he's a very secure person. And having boundaries has allowed us to say, okay, we're not going to try that, or, we'll give this a go. And if it doesn't work for us, that's fine. Also, it's really important to know these things are not a failure. It's a process. If something doesn't work for you, that's okay. Not everything is going to work. And, relationships and marriages and everything else can still work out. You just have to compromise and meet in the middle. Sometimes things aren't going to be for everybody. I mentioned earlier, like, that I had been with somebody that had a foot fetish. And I don't know a lot about fetishes. I don't. I wouldn't really have the faintest idea. But I imagine they exist, and if I found one day that was for me and it wasn't for Josh, that would be fine. Because I would say, well, whatever this is, it's for me, it's not for Josh, so I'll go off and enjoy whatever this is by myself, and I won't bother Josh with it because he's not interested. And I know in my relationship, which is quite secure, I would be free to do that. So I would be free in my relationship to go off and explore anything by myself that he wasn't into. And I don't think he would mind if I came back and maybe discussed it with him and said, I explored this because I thought it was something I was into, and, I loved it, or, as the case might be, it didn't work out at all, and you were right to not like it. So what are boundaries in the bedroom to you, and what do they mean for you as a person?
I guess without trying to tread over the same ground again, boundaries in the bedroom for me are, I suppose, discussing what one another is into, respecting that, and finding a way that you can both be pleased without doing something you're not pleased with. So it's not okay for someone to be having pleasure on one side and not the other. I feel like the person giving the pleasure and the person receiving the pleasure should both be comfortable and happy with what they're doing. I don't feel like there should be pleasure on one side and then discomfort on the other side. I think you both need to be comfortable with what you're doing. You both need to be happy with what you're doing. And, it needs to be a two-way street. Even if you're not the one receiving the pleasure, you have to be comfortable with what you're doing. And you have to go into it thinking, I'm comfortable with this, I'm happy to do this, and maybe even I enjoy doing this because I know my partner enjoys it and I'm happy to do it. I feel comfortable doing it, so I get enjoyment from that factor of it. I think that, again, there needs to be comfort and enjoyment on both ends.
Definitely. And question 3 is, what new things would you be willing to try in the bedroom? Now, for me, this is it might be amusing to some. I think it's very funny. Now, to be honest, I can't keep a straight face. I think it's very funny to speak about, BDSM and stuff because it just makes me laugh. I can't take things like that seriously myself because someone said once, years and years ago, that I'd make a great dominatrix. Now, to be honest, it absolutely made me laugh because I just thought, what in the hell would I say? What would I do? Like, would I shout at someone, get on the floor and lick my boots? Which for me, I think is absolutely hilarious. I mean, genuinely. So although I find speaking in great detail maybe about BDSM, I don't think it's all for me. But there are certain kind of lighter sides of that I wouldn't mind trying or that we have tried, Something like, fluffy handcuffs and maybe some intimate dice or like a game. Or, I would like to explore. Now, this is something that actually makes me uncomfortable, but I would like to explore bringing food into intimacy. I'm not into the whole getting physically dirty thing. However, I would like to push myself slightly outside my comfort zone and see if it's something I could learn to enjoy, maybe once in a while. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be like that every time, because I don't actually think it should be. But yeah, I'd be interested in pushing the boat out a little bit and kind of, as they say, dipping your toe in the water and trying. It's not all going to be for me because, to be honest, most of it I do find funny. But, trying out different ways of maybe light restraint and dealing with the senses would be lovely for me. So, maybe using some massage oil that smells nice, or running a feather or something light over Josh's body to give him some pleasure, that would be really nice. And I think as well, like, it's important to remember that sometimes someone isn't in the mood for anything and you haven't done anything wrong. It's literally just how you feel. Now, I'm only saying that because sometimes Josh is not always in the mood, but I've done nothing wrong and it's nothing to do with me. It's a him issue. And I'm learning that. It is taking time, but I'm slowly learning that, that's how he is sometimes, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with me. And actually, if you asked Josh, he'd probably say no one did anything wrong. Nothing is wrong at all. It's just, his drive isn't always quite so high, and that's also okay. So, those are some new things that I would be willing to try. Definitely, just experimenting with the senses, but not kind of, whipping or anything like that. I do think a tiny bit of maybe light whipping would be fun, but I mean more kind of occasionally tapping his bottom with like a paddle or something fun, not something that hurts. Because for me, and this might just be my view, anything that hurts is really not a good thing. I don't like things that hurt. A slight sting maybe, but actually hurting for me is a big no-no. I think if it's fun, fine. But if it kind of steps out of the realm of that and you realize that it might be coming across as a bit mean or like you don't care, then you have to pull back. So I'm open for slight experimentation with the senses. And what about you, Josh? What new things would you be willing to try in the bedroom?
That is a good question. So, I'm not someone that's kind of too experimental, if I'm honest. But I'm happier with, I suppose, the more common things when it comes to, sex and sexual activities. Maybe some more playfulness in the bedroom. A bit more kind of flirtation.
Uh-huh.
I suppose nothing kind of too deep or too far, but a little extra spice is maybe the right word.
Mm.
A little extra spice here, a little extra spice there. Maybe, again, being a bit playful. I suppose that's kind of where I would go from where we are.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably, I'd probably sprinkle some more of that in. But other than that, like, I gotta admit, I'm not the type to kind of go, far out with this kind of stuff.
Far out, man.
Far out, dude. But yeah, like, I'm not someone to kind of take a giant leap into the unknown. It's just not me, and I'm not sure if I would be comfortable with that. But obviously, like, if there was Hannah, like, obviously Hannah's mentioned a few things that she might like to try, and I'd be happy to have a talk with her about it and see kind of, again, a compromise on where we can go with that and what we can do, and yeah, we can try and work that in somewhere and see what the outcome is.
Yeah, and I mean, question 4 then goes in line with that. What would you be unwilling to try and why? So obviously, as I said previously, anything that involves anybody being in pain is something I'm not willing to do. And although this might sound mean or maybe controversial, I don't find people that get joy out of giving people pain to be either good people or, sexy people. That for me is a big turn off. And to be honest, lads, I just think people that are like that might need a little bit of therapy. As for other things that I would be unwilling to try, anything anal, because that's not for me. And I would also be unwilling to try anything which is far too outside the norm of what things are. So, like I said, with things that I would be willing to do more of or try more of, I'm okay to kind of go slightly outside the lines, but it's kind of going miles away from where I ever was, which is a problem for me. So, trying light bits of bondage and stuff is fine for me, but anything too extreme, anything that's just exceptionally weird is not for me. And now, to be fair, I know I said that I think people that are into kind of causing people pain do need therapy. Obviously, you do you, we're all unique. And if that gives you pleasure, fine, but guys, remember, always get the permission and consent of the person that you're with, even have it in writing and have a safe word. That is very important, and you need to seriously communicate these things first. I'm gonna whip you maybe because I want to. What is your safe word? What do you say when you want things to end? Have we got a word you say when you'd like things to cool off and not be so intense? So safety first, always. So those are the kind of things I would be unwilling to try because, that goes in with having boundaries. And there are certain boundaries I will never cross because it's not me and it's not who I am. So I wouldn't be doing that. What about, yourself, Josh? What's something you'd be unwilling to try and why?
So I will start with kind of what you were saying about the painful stuff. Again, like, no disrespect to people that are into that. If two people, if they're both into that, if they both get off on that and they're both willing to do it, if they've agreed, that's down to them, that's their thing, and that's fine. It's not my thing, like Hannah was saying. So that's not something I just wouldn't get any enjoyment out of that. I would probably be more anxious than anything. So yeah, there wouldn't be any pleasure there, and I just wouldn't enjoy that. The other thing, kind of like what Hannah was saying, was anything dirty, kind of like what I was saying earlier. I don't like dirty sex or dirty activities. Like it wouldn't make. Again, I wouldn't feel comfortable with all kinds of mess and whatnot on me. I wouldn't enjoy that. Again, like there has to be pleasure on both sides, whether you're the receiver or the giver. You have to be comfortable on both ends, and I wouldn't be comfortable. So that would be a no-go for me as well. Let's see. I don't think I'd want to do anything too risky, like something that could put someone in danger or cause some kind of infection, or disease, or ill health, or just something like that. I wouldn't want to kind of be getting into anything like that. It's a strange one. There's not a lot of things I suppose I would want to do. Like I wouldn't be into. I suppose there's certain things I wouldn't want to wear, have on. I think there are tame things that you can use, and I think there are things that are.
When you say that there isn't something you'd like to wear, do you mean something like a posing pouch or something, or?
Probably so. Yeah, like like a sexy pair of boxers or something is fine, but like this, certain. And no slight to anyone who does this kind of stuff, but I wouldn't want to be. There's some dressing up I wouldn't want to do, and there's some, again, like items of clothing and accessories and stuff I wouldn't want to have on or do anything with. Again, it's not me, and I wouldn't feel comfortable. So I know I probably sound quite boring, but to be honest, that's who I am. And if Anna did want to do anything more, I would talk about it with her, and I'd see where we could get to, what we could do, and how we could maybe work it in so we're both happy, if possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important. And that's why it's important always to remember that intimacy is not always sexual. A lot of the time, like Josh and I are quite sexual people, but a lot of the intimacy we get isn't from that. It's from being close to each other and spending time with each other. And I think what a lot of people should realize in their relationships, or maybe don't know, is that you can be intimate in a sensual way as well. Josh, really helped me to learn about being intimate sensually. What feels good on the skin? Is this oil nice for a massage? Now, giving is definitely one of the things that I love the most. So I do love nothing more than, giving Josh a massage after he's had a hard day at work. That for me is our time to be intimate and close, and I can hear about how his day went. I'm massaging every stress away, and I'm making him feel as good as I can. And that's really good, and it makes me feel amazing. And question 5, do you think we do enough in the bedroom? Now for me, personally, I think we do enough in the bedroom. However, the thing I struggle with is what I said earlier. that sometimes Josh isn't always in the mood, and I can tend to think, have I done something wrong? But I'm now learning to realize actually, it's never me, it's kind of always him, and that's okay. Sometimes he's just not in the mood, there's nothing wrong with him necessarily. He's just not in the mood, and that's okay. And also, like, I've been learning to accept as well that, sometimes I'm not in the mood. And for example, like years ago, I would have mentally berated myself and said, like, why am I so useless? Why am I not in the mood? I'm gonna let the person I'm with down. But it never entered my head to stop, take a breath, and think about how I was feeling. And now I'm a lot more mindful of things like that. And it's very important that we're always mindful. Sometimes if you're not in the mood, that's okay. And it's okay to accept that. I think in my case, like sometimes I will get so excited about the prospect of being excited sexually that then I can get completely let down when I'm not. And that's, it's okay. Sometimes you're going to think you want things and you don't want them. And, that's also okay. I think, to be honest, in my case at least, a lot of the less, self-judgment. Because for years I would judge myself. I'm not good enough, I'm not this and I'm not the other. I am enough. And to be honest, we're all enough. And we'll all be enough for the right person. So, do I think we do enough in the bedroom? I do. And I think, that I'm enough for Josh. He's definitely enough for me. And, Josh, do you think we do enough in the bedroom?
I agree with that sentiment, and I do think we do enough. Yeah, so like, I think we definitely do enough. And yeah, I think for me, I think as long as none of us are feeling like we're missing out, and we're both, receiving pleasure when we need it, but not at the expense of the other person. I suppose, for lack of a better way to put it. I guess what I'm trying to say is, when we want pleasure, that's fine. And if we want to look to our partner to help us to receive that pleasure, that's okay too. But again, we have to be mindful of we're not forcing anyone.
Definitely.
We're not making anyone do anything they're uncomfortable with. And we have to be mindful that they might not be in the mood just because you are.
And I asked, for reassurance, didn't I, Josh? Just let me know sometimes that you're fine and you're not in the mood and it's okay and I've done nothing wrong. Something like that. I did ask you for some kind of reassurance there that,
You did, absolutely. And, I hope that I did manage to reassure you.
You did, and to be honest, it was a relief. And you see, this is the point about relationships. I think we're all learning as we go. And if anybody tells you they have a perfect relationship, I'm sorry to inform you they're lying. Nobody does. But we learn as we go. And I learned myself that I internalize stuff. And so instead of keeping things inside and kind of overthinking things, which might even be wrong, because I might think of something the wrong way, I'm now choosing to voice it to Josh, and he'll either say, yes, you were correct about that, or wow, you were way off. Now, to be honest, more often than not, it's wow, you were way off. Because that's how it goes. Because like before, as I said, I would feel mentally, I guess, as though I was very much in the mood, and then I would go and do it, and I wouldn't be in the mood at all. And I ended up feeling very, I suppose, disappointed internally in myself, and feeling like I was letting Josh down. However, I never communicated that to him until ages later. And it was only when I communicated it to him that I realized how silly it was, because he certainly hadn't thought I had let him down in any way, shape, or form. And he was actually rather surprised. I just think in society sometimes there's a lot of pressure on people to need to perform or to give. And, as the African proverb says, it's not by force. It's a conjoint effort. You come together, you do the right things, and make your way to the promised land together. And, I think as well for people of, a certain age, when you get to become middle-aged, sometimes the idea of intimacy can be quite, a difficult thing to think of. As an example, when I was a lot younger, I thought when women hit the menopause, that sex ends for them. That's the end of the line. The sexy choo-choo train ends there. It doesn't go any further. And then I was browsing on YouTube and I came across a wonderful kind of health and fitness documentary by Angela Lansbury. J.B. Fletcher, as those who watch Murder, She Wrote will know her by. Now, to be fair, I love Angela Lansbury. I think she was one of the best people. Every time I heard her sing, it made me cry because she had the most beautiful voice. And when I watched this documentary, it was so refreshing. Obviously, it was to do with health and fitness and so on, but she was in her 60s in it. And she mentioned being in her 60s and how you can still be that age and be sensual and have time for yourself. And how, sex for them at that age might be slower and more relaxed, but they still very much enjoy it. And I found like when I watched it, I got quite emotional because I thought, oh my God, that's such a relief. Like things don't have to end when I'm middle-aged. I had been quite afraid when I was younger that I would become middle-aged, wake up and suddenly realize, okay, sex is not for me, goodbye, don't touch me, don't anything. And it's not true, basically. And it was such a relief. And I think for older people or, people that are middle-aged currently, they just need to know that things are okay for them. And it's okay to go at a slower pace. A lot of the time people are feeling like they have to rush. And I think in today's society, and I'm saying it, sometimes when we're going off dating people, they can have this view that like, do you have sex on the first date? Do you not? How fast do you move? And sometimes you just need to quit while you're ahead and stop it. Stop trying to always think of the race and get to the next stop. The train can't go any faster than the way it's going. Enjoy the ride while you're on it. Don't be thinking of the next best thing. Because I've noticed in my life at least, you waste time. And it's not important. What matters is that you enjoy what you're doing, you enjoy who you're doing it with, and you have the best time. Take your time. And the right person, ladies and gentlemen, will never make you feel like you're not enough, or that you don't do enough, or you don't provide enough. If people are not willing to have open and honest conversations about what it is they do or don't want, then, the relationship really is going nowhere. You have to be with the right person. I know I could discuss anything with Josh, and he'll never get offended, because he's a very secure guy. And when I was thinking of the guys that I had dated in the past, not all of them were secure. But not all of them were insecure in the same way either. Because there's different ways of being insecure. So I thought one guy was real insecure in comparison to the others. But they just had different insecurities. And I think, to be honest, let's not lie, in the West we have the ability to discuss things a lot more openly. So for any and all ages, just take it easy. And take life as it comes and just enjoy it. Enjoy the company of being with someone else and doing what is good for you and what makes the both of you happy. Because ultimately, lads, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. If you're unhappy, it doesn't matter how cool they think what you have is. The grass is not always greener on the other side. Sometimes it's bloody astroturf. So, but it is. So sometimes you have to just go with it and just, be happy to have what you have and find someone that will be able to accept you as you are. What advice would you give to somebody who's middle-aged, who's entering back into the dating scene now? I suppose, what would you tell them? Because I know it would be a lot different from when they were younger.
Let's see, what would I tell them now?
Yeah, because we might get a lot of middle-aged viewers or listeners.
Yeah,
I want to make sure we're reaching out to everybody so that everybody feels seen and heard, which they are, of course. We love and appreciate everyone in our audience.
Absolutely. Let me see. I would say the dating world is definitely shifted.
Mm-hmm.
If you're middle-aged now and you were dating when you were younger, I don't know, 20 so years ago, a lot of people, I suppose it's a strange one, because I suppose a lot of young people don't really, from my understand or what I've experienced, find each other kind of in person anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you find someone and you kind of start a relationship in person, you probably know that person from somewhere. Like maybe you're in the same university course together, or in the same university building or club,
Mm-hmm.
or again maybe you go to some kind of fitness club or some kind of sport, like in your spare time. Maybe you work with them. I think that's how a lot of in-person relationships are formed nowadays.
Yeah.
But I think if you're looking for somebody, again, that you don't kind of work with or you don't see on a regular basis, then I think dating apps are mainly the way it goes nowadays. And it can be difficult because there's a lot of competition on dating apps. From what I understand, women get floods of messages from men, and men, don't really get floods back. They kind of have to be the one. Again, this is from my experience. Have to be the ones kind of sending the message, and you have to try and stand out in a sea of, several dozen men approaching the same woman, and that can be difficult because as a man, if everybody you approach, has again dozens of people messaging them, then it's always a competition to be the one that's seen, and that can be hard because I'm sure nobody really wants to compete with anyone for somebody, but with dating apps, that's kind of the nature of it, especially if you're a guy, I would say. So dating apps are kind of the way to go if you're trying to find somebody, again, that you don't see on a regular basis. Maybe it's different if you're middle-aged, because if you're middle-aged, you're probably going to be dating someone that's also middle-aged. And maybe they prefer the old-fashioned way. Maybe they prefer meeting someone down at the pub or in person.
Yeah, and somebody that's middle-aged as well might have experienced a bit more of life. Like younger people haven't, I think, experienced as much life as middle-aged people have. And I find when looking at middle-aged people, they seem to know a lot about what it is they definitely do want. Because they've experienced things they don't want when they were in their 20s and 30s. By the time they're in their 60s, they know what they're looking for. And if they don't find it, they're gonna probably just look elsewhere until they do. And, I think it's important, what I want people, I guess, to take from this particular episode is that it's okay to be open and to have these conversations without shame and without embarrassment. If we're not okay to discuss these kinds of things, we're never going to evolve as a species and we're never going to get anywhere. Sometimes you just have to have conversations. What are you into? What are you not into? What are you willing to do or, unwilling to do? There's all different kinds of things. And I would want people to take from this episode of the podcast that they should have confidence. They should be confident in who they are as a person, and confident more so in the fact that if they should be confident more so in the fact that unless they find someone that's willing to do what they're into, they don't have to settle. Because nobody ever has to settle. And if someone tells you that you have to settle, they're insecure and they have problems. Now, of course, maybe somebody would settle, which I actually think is a negative, because I don't feel we should be settling anyway. I think there's someone positive out there for everybody, and it's up to us to find that person. As the cheesy saying goes, you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you meet your prince. And I wasn't kissing frogs, I was kissing bloody toads. So I suppose when it comes to things in the bedroom, is there anything that you would like me to do more of?
Let's see, question number 6 is this.
Yeah.
More of. That's a good question, because I can't really think of anything that I would like it to do more of, to be honest. I'm quite satisfied as things are.
By the way, the answer would be the same for me. I'm very satisfied with how things are. I just added in that question myself because I just thought it was interesting to find out, is there anything he thinks I should do more of?
I think that's a fair question, and I think to other people, they probably would be able to give you more in-depth answers, but I think just with us the way we are in our relationship, I think we both get what we need.
And I think as well, for autistic people, because when I was watching Love on the Spectrum, I saw an interview with a couple that were together. I don't remember their names now, but they were from the American one. And they really had notions that once you get with someone, you're supposed to sleep with them immediately, and that's what a relationship is. And they had to do work to learn that's not the case. And when I was a teenager, I used to say, why am I never enough for anybody? Why is it always all about sex? Why am I not enough? And I remember I would spend so many hours in my room crying about the fact that I was never enough for anyone. All anybody wanted was sex. Now, obviously, I was still a virgin at this point, But I think when you're young and you have that kind of naive point of view, you kind of think, well, that's not important. I'm important. And actually, I think the truth is, now as an older person kind of looking back, I think the truth is that both are important. You should be enough for someone, but also, sex is important. And I think this is the whole discussion, like sex is important in a relationship. But, as an example, I was on Instagram the other day, and I was looking at the page of Charlene Douglas, and she is the sex expert on Married at First Sight UK. And she was saying that people are always asking her how many times a week should a couple be intimate with each other. And everybody was waiting for her to give the answer, and she said typically it's once a week. However, a lot of people online will say they do it more than once a week, and that's just not honest. Now, I had learned that before as well, but it was also refreshing to hear that from an expert. I don't understand personally why, as a society, people are out on the internet saying that they're doing it several times a day or something, when realistically, is anyone ever doing it several times a day? We don't have time. We've got things to do. We're working, or we're doing housework, or cooking, or any number of things. Like, I think the reality of the situation is it's not the quantity, guys, that matters. It really is the quality. If you love what you do, you really don't need tons of it if it's really good. That's just the way I view things. Because I think things should be simple. And I do think when you're a lot younger, you put a lot of pressure on yourself, and so does society. Like I was married before, for example. And I find when I was a lot younger and someone else got married, I had said to them, oh, guys, when do you think you're going to have kids? Because that's what people were asking them. And I never realized what an insensitive question that was until I got married and it happened to me. And then I just got really mad, and I thought, well, who the hell are they to ask me this kind of question? What the hell? But then realized, actually, this is what society does, and it's not actually okay. There's oftentimes this expectation that life has to follow a particular plan. You get married, you have your babies, and that's the way it is. Now, as Josh and I have said previously, like, kids are not for either of us. But we're gonna spend our time together until we're old and ugly, just doing lots of great things together. Loads of different kind of projects on music or art or pottery or any kind of thing. It's a lot of fun. We're enjoying life, living every day as it comes, and making up our own rules, as Carrie Bradshaw would say. Make up your own rules and do it your way. And so, question 7 then kind of goes, I suppose, in the opposite way. Is there anything that you think I could do less of?
Less of?
And what I mean by that, I guess, is like, is there anything that I do that you think, okay, enough?
I think sometimes you try to arouse me. And I don't mean any disrespect by this, but sometimes you try to arouse me when it's maybe not a good time. Like maybe when I'm in the middle of doing something. And I'm thinking, this is fantastic, but now just isn't the best time for this. I'm maybe in the middle of doing a task, or I'm trying to, I've not got a lot of time, like I'm short on time, or, something along those lines. So don't get me wrong, when it's the right time, it is great. It's just maybe there are times when it's good to do, and times when it's probably better to wait.
Okay.
So I think some of the saucy behaviour sometimes could be done in a better moment.
Well, I'll definitely learn to read more about the time in which I'm doing things. I think sometimes I just get overly excited and project that onto others, but in my overexcited nature, I don't stop to think, actually, are they busy or have they got the time? But yeah, I can certainly become more aware. And you see, that's why I say, lads, every day is a school day. Because you can only grow and learn with these kinds of conversations. And this is why we have these kind of conversations, to help teach people and show them how to grow and learn in their relationship. These conversations are pivotal and important to have in a relationship. For sure.
Absolutely, and I really respect that, and I do love that Hannah, she puts in the effort. Some people won't put in the effort, but she does, and it's nice that she, that she tries to kind of be spicy with me, and, she keeps that spark alive with me and her, and I do appreciate that, and I wouldn't want to come off like I don't. It's just that, again, there are some times when it's maybe not the best time. But again, she does it a lot of times when it is a good time. You know, I love it, and I'm very grateful to her for it.
And I'm grateful to you.
Oh, thank you, sweet. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really, appreciate Josh a lot, and I think it's very important to constantly reaffirm and appreciate your partner. Compliments are free, guys. We don't obviously want to be with someone that is constantly fishing for compliments, because that would annoy everybody. But it's good to give people compliments and give your partner compliments. Tell them that you're proud of them and that you appreciate what they're doing for you. Make it personal. I'm so grateful to Josh. He takes care of me in the best way possible. And I really am the luckiest person I know for this reason. And I would just want everybody to be able to have a great relationship like I have. Because it's very special, and we all deserve to feel just as special and taken care of and loved as I do.
Definitely. Same with me. And it treats me very well and takes care of me very, very well. And I suppose to round it off, Hannah, same to you. Like, is there anything you'd wish I would do less of?
Is there anything that I wish Josh would do less of? Well, this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with intimacy. But I find, like, sometimes, for example, Josh will be aware that he has gone and purchased something which is extremely bizarre. But he won't think to let me know, by the way, I've purchased something exceptionally bizarre. It will turn up eventually, and this is what it looks like. Because to be fair, sometimes he'll get something and I'm looking at it and I don't even know what it is. I'd be like, I don't know what it is. What even is this object? Or sometimes, to be fair, I'm like, why? And sometimes, Josh does tend to have the habit, I don't think he knows he does this, but sometimes he'll have this habit of getting an expression on his face which says to me that he's not even sure why. Now, I'm not good at reading people's facial expressions, guys, but sometimes that's the feeling I get, like that even he's not sure. But it was so crazy, he went with it, and he'd like if I went with it as well. A while back, he got a kind of a cardboard standee for a Nintendo Switch game and put it in the corner of the relaxation room. And I was not here, I was on holiday with my best friend when he got this, and he showed it to me on the video. And while I had been on holiday with my best friend, I was unwell. And of course, it was my time of the month when I was unwell as well, which made everything worse. First time in my life I've ever had my time of the month and been sick at the same time. Would not recommend it, 1000%. And when I saw this, cardboard standee, I just kind of said, because to be honest, I was very annoyed because, I had my cycle and I felt sick and I was overwhelmed with kind of negative kind of emotions, I guess. And I kind of said, why did you get that? And then he had said, my mom liked it. And I remember saying, now you bring the phone to her this minute and she needs to explain to me why she liked this. No, she's gonna explain herself. Oh, yeah. And I mean, to be honest, no, I was an absolute sass mouth. And I know it. And to be honest, it felt irrational because when I came home and saw it, I realized that this thing for this Nintendo game, I thought it was fabulous. But on the phone and with the way I was feeling, it had looked so ridiculous to me and it was completely not necessary. And, it made me laugh. So, just in future, Josh, love, if you're buying bizarre stuff, tell me you bought it and show me what it looks like so I don't get a shock when something random turns up in the mail.
I'll do my best, Efren.
Because recently, guys, I'm exposing Josh now, but recently he bought a Mac in a sack. And it was this big blue thing. And, I kind of was like, oh man, why did he buy that? Oh no. But then I realized in my head, well, he's the one that has to wear it. I don't know why I'm getting bothered. I don't have to wear it, he has to wear it. So.
A Mac in a sack is a waterproof poncho, for anyone that might not know what a Mac in a sack is, because I don't think I was familiar with the term at first.
Basically the stuff that you used to wear to Oxygen and Electric Picnic and stuff back in the day. All of the festivals.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's been today's podcast, guys. We were so happy to have you with us. And, just enjoy your week ahead. I hope it's very positive for you. Love and light to everybody listening. comment down below, subscribe, like the podcast video, and share this with your friends and family.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We were trying our best to talk about sex and intimacy. Just, general bedroom talk, I guess. A little extra. Without kind of being too explicit and trying to be, I guess, appropriate for YouTube or anyone that, doesn't like too much detail in their sex talk. Who wants, I suppose, sex talk without all the nitty-gritty details. And I hope me and Hannah both were able to give some kind of an insight and some kind of, lesson or some kind of perspective on sex and intimacy. And maybe got you guys thinking or, kind of, I don't know if I want to say inspired, but, just kind of maybe planted a little seed in your mind about... Sorry, it sounds really dodgy, doesn't it? Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say,
Oh, he's gone dirty.
I have. I hope we just maybe got you thinking, got the old noggin there. The old and it's laughing at the word noggin. Can't remember the last time I said noggin. Got the old noggin, running. Got the old hamster, going.
Don't mind Josh and his random phrases. Where are you pulling these? It sounds like he's pulling these phrases out of his arse and he should put them back in.
That's where my best ideas come from. Oh man, I need to try and get this back on track now. What am I saying?
The runaway train, guys. He's derailed this whole conversation.
There's no going back.
No.
What I'm trying to say anyway is, I hope we got you guys thinking and maybe gave you a bit of food for thought, is what I'm trying to say. When it comes to, the bedroom and sex and things along those lines.
We hope we inspired you guys to be able to have these kind of conversations with your partners in a safe and loving environment. What we want to do is encourage and inspire people in a nice, safe and friendly environment, and we want you to feel like you can discuss what we're discussing with us, just in a positive way. So we really do hope that you learned a lot from this on how to discuss these kinds of things with your partner, and that we could give you a good insight into what that might look like.
Yeah, definitely. We hope you took something away from this episode. And just thank you all very much for listening. Have a great week, like Hannah was saying. Look after yourselves. Don't forget, sex is a big part of life too. But it's a part of life that, you have to treat with respect. And sometimes it's a one-way street, sometimes it's a two-way street. And if it's a two-way street, you gotta remember that there's somebody else involved.
Mm-hmm,
so
definitely
be respectful and be kind.
No matter where you are listening in the world, everybody, stay lovely.
Stay lovely indeed. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.